GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows. Available everywhere podcasts.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the GSMC Fantasy Sports Podcast, brought to us always by the GSMC Sports Network. I hope you enjoyed our prop bet segments on some teams from the AFC West. Two teams that I really believe are kind of transcending the rest of the AFC West, but for many different reasons. Let's do it with the AFC East a little bit. Let's talk about two teams in the AFC East who are kind of going in divergent trajectories, but also seem to be the cream of the crop in their division. Let's start with a team up in Buffalo where a lot of intriguing things are happening. Much like the Chargers, they as well seem to be taking more of a minimalistic approach to football. They were unafraid to let Stefon Diggs and Gabe Davis go, but they did realize that they needed a high-end wide receiver, so they got a guy in Keon Coleman, who a lot of people are high on. I think that in terms of catch radius, in terms of contested catching, there's no one better in that draft class than Keon Coleman, and so he could be an interesting option. But when you look outside of just him, and the fact that he's a rookie, you look at guys like Khalil Shakir and Curtis Samuel, there is no number one wide receiver. And so the reason why I say the Bills are headed to our minimalistic approach is because, well, in fact, they did. Last year, in order to get to the playoffs, to win that insane stretch of games, to even have a chance, they realized they needed to minimalize. And they were really focused on being more comfortable with less is more. And in that case, Josh Allen, much like what Justin Herbert could be this year, if Jim Harbaugh gets his cards right, became much more, not necessarily passive, but more connected to the idea that offense isn't all about flinging the ball down the field. And so, while I think the Buffalo Bills can be just fine in terms of offensive production, is because, well, they don't necessarily see themselves anymore as a team that needs to throw the ball down the field. That's the thing. They always knew that the caveat with Josh Allen, the cliche with him, is that he would always have some turnovers in his game. Reducing that and making him more comfortable and making everyone in the offense more comfortable ultimately became the Bills' mantra, and that's why everyone in the Bills organization really came together and identified that. And so the reason I'm a little more high on the Bills as well is that the Chargers just don't have the same kind of talent that the Bills do, and the same kind of success that the Bills have had. And I'm looking at the Bills over-under at 10.5. And I'm thinking, well, it's kind of appealing to take the over, right? Because the Bills, as long as they have, Josh Allen, and as long as, you can throw for gaudy stats, you can say that they can do just enough to get there. But then I think about what this offense needs to do in order to get to the level of some other offenses in the AFC. It might be a bit scarier. Is it truly break in Keon Coleman? They need to believe that Curtis Samuel or Khalil Shakir is a number 2 receiver, and a solid one at that. And they need to believe that should they truly implement this more minimalistic approach to their style, that everyone involved gets a chance to have a say in it. And so, when I think about the steps the Bills need to take to really achieve a level of success on offense that everyone is happy with, it's a lot more than other teams. Yeah, the Chiefs have to break in a couple of people, but isn't that what Patrick Mahomes did last year? He understands what it takes to break in a receiver. He understands the time now that his ordeal of last year happened. It's the first time in quite some time where Josh Allen really hasn't had a high-end wide receiver. He's always had Stefon Diggs, but he's never had a wide receiver room where nothing was as solidified as now. And so, at minus 145, the under certainly feels as if it's the safest bet. And when you go furthermore into the Bills as a whole, I think now is the time more than ever where I can start to see signs of them regressing. It's not just due to internal things, it's due to external factors as well. The fact of the matter is the AFC is just getting exponentially better. The Bengals will be back. Joe Burrow's healthy, and if he stays healthy, the Bengals are always dangerous. The Ravens, they continue to get scarier. Like I said, the Chiefs are always there. The Texans, a new team coming in. Maybe the Colts. Maybe the Jaguars and Trevor Lawrence get back into the AFC South. So all of these teams that have more optimistic approaches as to how they view this season. And then the Bills, who lost so much production for a quarterback who, while he certainly understands having a less is more approach, he definitely does have more verticality to him than others in the AFC. To immediately have to break in so many different things, understand the nuances of perhaps a new look offense, it's going to be difficult. And I don't think that in the AFC it's going to be as easy as it was several years ago when everyone was just trying to get their feet wet and beat the Bills. There are teams now that can beat the Bills. We'll talk with the Jets in their last segment of today's show. We think about the Dolphins as well. And there are teams in their own division now well primed to overtake them because they have less question marks. And so, while you always think the Bills have a solid chance of being one of the best teams in the league, reaching that 10-win threshold at the very least, at the bare minimum, this season just feels a bit different to me. Another popular bet is that Josh Allen will have under 4,000 yards. When you think about it, that should hold true. I don't think Josh Allen's going to be as kind of gunslinger as people expect this season. They realized last year, the Bills, like I said, that Josh Allen can't always be the star of the show. And this year, even though it seems like he should be, I think the best way forward for the Bills to continue having a less is more approach, because right now, in a league where everything's going forward, maybe it does make sense to move back. And I think the Bills are better equipped to do it than the Chargers because the Chargers have a new head coach, and the Bills just have more experience, at least in their coaching department. But when I think about other quarterbacks in the AFC as well, I think that their mindsets are constantly evolving to where they understand their comfortability. I'm not sure Josh Allen has a certain sense of comfortability in doing different things than, say, a Lamar Jackson, who last year really tried to find some success throwing the football down the field, or, say, a Joe Burrow, who really has the potential to be a vertical threat, but understands that less is more, but also has that in his arsenal, that deep throw. Does just Josh Allen have the nuance to really buy fully into this system? I think last year, he had no choice, and sometimes it felt forced, especially, against the Chiefs, I would say, where he really kind of got lost in the moment and wanted to push it a little bit. But at the end of the day, in order to get over the hump, Josh Allen needs to understand that there's two sides to the coin. Excuse me. He needs to understand that there's a plan A, and there's a plan B. And plan A hasn't always worked. It hasn't worked to get them to the point that they want them to be at. It hasn't worked to get them to the Super Bowl. And so they really want to achieve that. Now more than ever is the opportunity for Josh Allen to say, hey, I think this is the best path forward for this team, and I think I'm going to stick with that. And so in order for Josh Allen to truly evolve, I think he does need to pass for under 4,000 yards. He doesn't need to continue throwing the ball. In fact, I can see him passing for under 3,500 yards. And so, at the end of the day, the Bills will go as far as Josh Allen goes. Let's just about do it for this segment. Coming next, we will transition for our last segment to the New York Jets and what they could be in the ever-evolving AFC East. We'll be right back to close out the show after the break.